Hello, everyone. I hope we are fine. And thank you all for joining today's speaker orientation. I'm sure we'll all learn a thing or two and have the most amazing talk ever at EuroPython 2026. So before we start, I'd like to remind you all that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube. Also, would like to thank all our mentors and mentees who've been part of the Speaker Mentorship Program over the years. So now I'll share some brief information regarding the speaking at the conference, especially when it comes to the logistics. So for those that have not done a talk at EuroPython before, when you get to the room where your session is happening, there'll be one session host and one room manager. They will help you with everything that you need to know, any question you have, um, the recordings, any help that you need, the timings and all that, they'll sort you out on all that. And the session host would introduce you and show you. Usually there are placards showing, and maybe you have 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, 1 minute left, so that you can keep your pace. Then also between the talks at EuroPython, there are like 10 minutes gap. So that time would be a good time to try to get to the room where your talk is happening so that I can get familiar with the environment. Then also there are different rooms and different room names based on that and the number of the capacity of that room. And then with the room setup, usually the recording team is at the back, then the chairs and the mic in front. Very, very simple. Then also regarding giving the talk, if you are giving like a regular talk, you have 25 minutes and you can take the 5 minutes to give your questions or use, if you are not comfortable taking any questions, you can give your talk for all that period. That's fine. And also again, the talks are recorded during EuroPython. So those are just like a few things about logistics that you need to know. If you have any further questions about that, you could put it in the chat and would go right into the main reason why we are here today. So my name is Nasha Kaur and I'll be your host for today. You could feel free to introduce yourself in the chat section. So we have a wonderful panel here today for the speaker orientation. And the reason why we're having this speaker orientation is to it's mostly for the first time speakers, but then anyone and everyone is welcome. It's about asking questions about giving a talk, your presentation, your slides, everything regarding that. Yes. So I'd like to call our panel to introduce themselves. And I'll start with Sebastian. He could introduce himself to us.
I Thank you. I was having troubles to unmute myself. My name is Sebastian Witowski. I'm a Python programmer, as probably most of you guys here. I've been a speaker at EuroPython since 2016. That was the first time I gave a talk, so already 10 years ago. Since then, I presented at various PyCons around the world, although COVID helped a lot because most of the conferences were remote. Yeah, I like speaking. I usually don't speak about what I do at work. I speak about things that excite me, some side projects and things like that. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and answer all the questions.
Great. You're welcome. Then next we have Truk.
Hello, I'm Cheuk. So, yeah, I was a data scientist, but then I go to too many conference and speaking too much, then so I have to change my career. So right now I am a developer advocate. So yeah, so going to conference and speaking at conference become part of my job, which is amazing. However, I really want to kind of help other people to enjoy speaking as well because I really like it. Yeah.
Great. Then Rodrigo.
Hello everyone, I'm Rodrigo from Lisbon, Portugal. Typically sunny Portugal, not so much today. I, I've been the first conference I attended was EuroPython 2022 in Dublin, and since then I'm this close to crossing 50 talks and tutorials given at different conferences around the world. And very
Wow.
much like Chuck, I do love speaking, but I'm very much here today to help everyone find joy in this because it's so much fun, honestly. And that's my goal here today.
Great, great, great. 50, that's a lot. Okay, so before we go into the questions, so I have like a question for all of you, and I'll start with Rodrigo. So you said you've almost delivered about 50 talks. So amongst all of that, which one is your favorite and why? If you have any,
So the question is, which talk is my favorite?
yeah, out of the ones you've given, yeah.
That's a very difficult question. Well, I'll dodge by saying something which is, I think, I'll tell you about my most underappreciated talk, which is a talk that's unfortunately I had to give remotely. And at some point, I was live coding, which is typically not something that's recommended. And I was doing it blindfolded, and I don't think people understood. And so I got no credit for it. And to this day, I'm very sad about it.
Honestly, I think one of the things that you remember you for one of the EuroPythons I went to was you were doing like a live coding for the talk you were giving, and it wasn't like the best, but then you were really like, I mean, you were having some technical difficulties and you were really still pushing through it. I'm like, that's interesting. That's one thing people really ran away from. So if you need any tips of live coding for a talk, Rodrigo is definitely the person to go to. And Chuk, how about you? Out of all the talks you've given, which one is your favorite?
Yeah, I didn't do something that exciting. I think that's very adjacent to speed running, which I definitely don't have the talent to do. But for me, I would say that my example of the talk that I really like the most is not mine, is Lei's keynote at PyCon Greece last year. Because it's a very personal talk. I tend to enjoy because maybe I'm biased because I've been to too many like tech talks that of course, like there's a joy in listening to like, oh, all these like exciting new features or like new ways of doing things, but I always appreciate when I see a very genuine emotional talk at a PyCon because it's very brave to do it. It takes a lot from the speaker. So I wish one day I would give a talk that is to that level, but I really, really love her talk. And if you get a chance, please watch it.
Great, that's really cool. Sebastian, how about you?
I'm gonna go with the first talk I gave. That was a talk called Writing Faster Python. And mostly there are a couple of things about this talk. That was the first talk I presented at the conference.
Mhm.
It has a lot of views on the YouTube channel. I also revised it a couple of years ago for the Python 3. Because I actually wrote it for Python 2 10 years ago, and it was already getting outdated. The whole idea for this talk started from a different conference because I saw like a cool talk for Rails conference where someone was presenting some nice tips for Rails, and I thought, hey, I could like see if there is something for Python, and that started a whole research of some blog posts, and that ended up with a presentation. So this talk has been with me for a very long time, but I had a lot of fun preparing it.
Great. That's really cool. And I guess it's really important to have fun while giving your talk. So yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. So we'll go into the questions that the attendees asked when they were filling the form. And we'll start with the questions that have to do with, though this is focused on giving the day of giving the talk and the preparation, there's a question about call for proposals. And I think that's like one of the parts that people are usually jittery about and very curious about. And I'll give this question to Rodrigo because he was on the program team last year and this year. So someone would like to know that generally, how can they get their topics selected for conferences, or what topics are usually preferred, or how can your proposal stand out? I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
That's a very good question and a very difficult question. I think, by the way, everyone here, if everyone got a talk accepted, they might, some of these things that might resonate with them, or they might be able to think about the things that they did to write a strong proposal. But it's mostly about, and especially because of LLMs these days, the proposal needs to feel human and genuine. Because there's nothing wrong with using an LLM to help you fix your grammar or your English. Most of us are not native English speakers, but you can tell, or you can still tell when you're reading a proposal and it was not written by a human. And I don't know if it's because you're not confident in your English or because you couldn't bother. And if it feels like you didn't bother writing the proposal, then I cannot trust you to make a good talk, to give a good talk. So that's one thing, make it look human/genuine. It's also not necessarily about talking about new stuff. You can give a talk about an old topic or about something everyone, quote unquote, knows. If you're giving your own perspective and if the proposal makes that clear, that's very valuable because everyone understands things in different ways, everyone makes different connections, people have different experiences. So that's another good way of making your proposal stand out. And then, believe it or not, making sure that the text looks polished enough. It doesn't look, I'm not saying it needs to look like an essay, but if your text is riddled with typos, or if it's difficult to read, or if it's all weirdly formatted, like sometimes I see sentences broken, being broken in the middle of the sentence, and then everything looks weird, and then a column with only one word per line, and then because clearly something wrong happened when you copied and pasted. That looks that makes you look bad because you didn't fix it, and for us we just don't know what to do with that. So automatically that gives us a possibly the wrong signal. So make sure your text is decent. I don't know off the top of my head. I think these are three tips I can give in general for other conferences. But of course, even if you do all of the Cheuk saying in the chat that pre-talks, the system that we use and that most or many Python conferences use, they support Markdown. So that also helps. But of course, even if you do all of this, we had over 600 proposals. We do not have 600 slots. Lots of very good talks, lots of very good speakers had to be left out. So don't be discouraged just because you weren't accepted. It doesn't necessarily say anything about you specifically or about your talk. Yeah, I hope this answers the question without taking too long.
Yeah, Sebastian and Chuk, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that's a very good answer to almost cover everything. For me, I think also sometimes like if you are like a hot take magnet, then like you love hot takes, then yeah, definitely like go for it. I think, at this day and age, yeah, sometimes a little bit of clickbait doesn't hurt if it's a light clickbait. If you get what I mean. Yeah.
Great. Sebastian, how about you?
But just I agree with everything that has been said. Just one thing from my end. If you have multiple ideas, don't be afraid to submit multiple proposals. Like, don't try to put all your eggs in one basket. Of course, it will be more work to polish more proposals, but you double or triple your chances.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, so now we'll go to the questions that have to do with talk preparation, talk content, and the structure. And one question that is very common that people really want answers to is how do they prepare to give their talk? So yes, they've been accepted. What can they do regarding preparation to give the talk? I think Chuk, you could start.
Yeah, for me, when I write the proposal, the talk is the start of preparing the talk because I would genuinely like already have a outline in mind what I'm going to talk about. For me, a talk is a story, right? So imagine if you're writing a story, you definitely will have some like kind of structure and skeleton. So that helps me. I don't know if like, because usually people, they will have different way of working, different way of thinking. So it may or may not help you to maybe write down an outline of what you want to talk about. Usually there will be an introduction of like maybe introducing a topic, or like if there's some background information people need to know about, maybe touch on that at the beginning. At the end, I I think usually for a lot of talks there will be a call to action, conclusion, or something like people can take away. Like, what do you want your audience to take away in this talk? So usually I would kind of emphasize that at the end. So having the beginning and the end, um, and then you are kind of like halfway there, because in the middle it's just like, going from A to B, then you are like, planning your journey, right? Like, how do you bring your audience from like, okay, let's say we're talking about this like topic of how to cook a dish, and at the end you want everybody to be able to cook a dish. So in the middle, you may be like, teaching them how to prepare the ingredients, and then like, how to prepare the oven, or how to like, so that's the another half of preparing the talk. So yeah, so for me it's almost like planning how you write a story, beginning, end, and then the journey to get there. Yeah.
Great, great. That's interesting. Rodrigo, Sebastian, is there anything you'd like to add?
Um, Maybe I can start. So the way I prepare my talks, I tend to prepare my talks well in advance. It all starts with the proposal. So I write down some idea for a talk. I have some simple template where I say what I want to say, what's the targeted audience, and what I would like people to get out from it. And as I work on the proposal, I just throw some ideas, some links, and so on. And if you have like a couple of months in advance to prepare, whenever you read something, you will come up with some ideas that are somehow related to your talk. And then it's still in the back of my head. So sometimes I might think of how to explain some specific concepts. So I just put some notes. And basically, the closer I get to the conference, the more content I have. So at some point, well, I like to script my talks because it just helps me to think through the whole topic. So at some point, I just sit down and write the whole pages of what I want to talk about. And then last part is just to create slides from it. So that's my approach.
Okay, great, great. Thank you. Rodrigo, I'd ask you a follow-up question regarding this. Is there a recommended structure for talks? If there is, you could share with us. And also maybe if there's live coding in there, does the structure change? Yeah.
I'm opinionated about live coding, so I can address that later. Regarding the preferred structure, I don't think there is like one perfect structure. If you want something safe, I think it's the best way to go is to like do the introduction where you say what I will talk about, then you talk about, and then at the end you summarize what you talked about. That's like the most common way. But like I have seen people basically telling a story for the first half of the talk, and that was very captivating. So yeah, whatever works for you, whatever concept you have makes sense. And regarding live coding, I have seen too many live coding sessions done just for the purpose of having live coding. So live coding is fine, but it can go terribly wrong. And yeah, I would be cautious what you want to present during the live coding. If you want to like show installing pip packages and you typing in the computer, then you might just throw in like a 15-second video in your slides, and that's the same. But if you want to show like part of the interface or a website or something, then it makes sense.
Okay, great. So there's a question regarding the scripts that I'll just like ask now, because since you've mentioned scripts. So Andrew wants to know, so he says thank you for mentioning the scripts. And also, is there any better method for the script, as in no script or partial scripts? Like which of these methods are good? Okay, Rodrigo's hand is up.
Because I think Cheuk and Sebastian will probably have a similar answer, but I love saying this every single year because what works for me is not what works for Sebastian, which is not what works for Cheuk, which is not what works for you. Sebastian scripts his talks. I don't tend to script mine. Cheuk said she starts with a proposal. The proposal is not what I start with. And Cheuk and Sebastian said they do different things. So I don't think there's no method is clearly better. For you, there is going to be a method that's clearly better, but there's of the three, full scripting, no scripting, partial scripting, nothing is transversally better for everyone.
Okay, great. There's a follow-up regarding the script. So, someone is asking, Sebastian, when you said script, do you mean you write key points, major punchlines, transitions, and general flow? Is that correct?
I was planning to answer on the chat, but we can do this here. So I basically end up with something that is a blog post. So I just write whole sentences, and then it's really up to you if you want to paste it in the speaker notes or not. By the way, one important thing to say, like when I give the presentation, I rehearse it. So by the time I present it on the stage, I know what I want to say. I don't have to go by the script. Usually script helps if I like blank out or something, but I don't read the script. It just helps me internalize all the content of the slides. I hope that helps.
Great. Yeah, great. Thank you. Rodrigo, I'll give you the next question. How do you balance the amount of information presented in the talk so that you don't overburden the audience, but at the same time make the talk interesting?
Oops, sorry about that. I just punched my microphone, and you might have heard it. That's a very interesting question, and again, it depends as with every single other question. One thing I do a lot is I present tutorials, and I feel very strongly about the way tutorials should be presented, and this carries over to talks. You should have less content. If I've been to talks where it felt like the point of the speaker was to intimidate me through the sheer amount of things they spit out at absurd velocities. And they're speaking really, really fast. And maybe they're saying everything right. I'm not saying that they're trying to trick me or anything, but it's just I get out of the talk, and other than wow, that was a lot of slides, I don't take a lot out of it. So if you're going for a pedagogical approach, then you want less content. Because even if you strip down, you want to talk about 10 things. If you eliminate 7 of them, you can still do a 25-minute talk on only 3 of those bullet points. And you can still remove the third one, and you're left with 2 bullet points, the 2 most important ones. And you can still do a 25-minute talk, that's a good talk, on those 2 bullet points. Of course, you have to target your audience accurately. If you're giving a talk to advanced people, you don't need to spend 25 minutes talking about defining a function. So of course, things need to be targeted at the appropriate people. But if you say you're going to give a talk to this type of people, to this type of person, sorry, and if you're clear about that in your talk description, then you get to assume, okay, they know X, Y, and Z, and you give a talk for that what's it called, for that archetype, for a person that knows the things you said they need, and then you can give a good talk even if it doesn't have a lot of content. Of course, you can do tricks around it, you can do acrobatics, you can play, you can do all sorts of things, but less content, because less is more.
Great, 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 great. Okay, we'll go to the next question, and I'll hand over to Cheuk. What are some common mistakes to avoid when giving a talk?
Ooh, common mistakes.
Yeah.
I think the common mistake is to beat yourself up. Especially for people who are like very new to public speaking. Either they are a first time speaker or they have only do it like a few times because I think one thing that discourages people a lot and they actually ended up hating speaking will be they overthink it. They practice a lot, they prepare, the talk was really good, but they just when they give the talk, they got nervous or they made some small mistake, and then they just keep thinking about the mistakes. Or when they watch the recording afterwards and just, oh my God, I look so awful. Like, oh my God, I said something wrong. And like, even though nobody noticed, actually. So, um, I think that's the thing that is so easy to do. But don't let that put you down. Just, you have already heard the three of us saying, right? Like there are so many different ways to give a talk, so many ways to prepare a talk. If something doesn't work, it may be the method doesn't work for you. Try something else. If you don't like certain thing, just try it again and change it, Nobody's perfect the first time they try, so it's okay to make mistake and just keep trying. Yeah.
Just keep trying. Amazing. Sebastian, how about you? Any common mistakes to avoid when regarding giving a talk?
Mm, well, I agree with what Chuck said. Like, if you completely bump your presentation, no one's gonna remember that. Like, people usually cheer for you when you're on the stage. If you do a bad presentation, people will just move on with their life. So, never beat yourself up if something goes wrong. Um, uh, Regarding common mistakes, I don't know. I would say there are some things that you can do wrong with your slides, putting like font too small or like relying on colors or like maybe not having a backup of your slides because I don't know the Keynote format doesn't work and you need a PDF or something like that. So you put a lot of work in preparation, and on the last mile something might go wrong. So it's always good to be prepared, like have enough sleep before your presentation, not be hangover and not drink too much coffee so you have to pee during the talk. Bunch of small details that you should pay attention to on the last mile of your talk, I would say.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. Rodrigo, is there anything you'd want to add?
I don't think that's necessary. No, Chuck and Sebastian got it covered.
Okay, great. So Rodrigo, I'd ask you, so how can someone deal with parts of their topic becoming outdated or irrelevant before the conference?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How can someone deal with parts of their topic becoming outdated or irrelevant before the conference?
I don't know. I assume, are we talking about like LLM related stuff? I
No
I
idea.
have
It was very vague. It wasn't very specific to like a particular topic.
uh, I don't know. I mean, just use common sense. What Sebastian said is very much true. The audience is rooting for you. So if you just say, if you
Mm,
include a disclaimer saying this information was up to date by the X of Y, it might be outdated
mm,
now. Or if you say, in the meantime, we know that this is outdated. Please refer to these links for the most up-to-date information. This to me sounds more or less reasonable, but Choke might have something better to say.
No, I'm saying that I have the same situation, just like PyCon Italy. I was giving a talk that is using like showing how many libraries that actually like they have a free-threaded compatible wheels, and of course that keep updating, right? And then I prepare a talk quite early in advance because it's the same talk I gave in PyCon DE. So however, there are a few things I could do if I am less lazy, which I'm not. I'm very lazy. I could update the slides right before the talk, right? The day before the talk. So it's more updated. Another thing that I did, which is just like Rodrigo said, I include a link of where that information is coming from. So people can check the latest information if they want to. Even after the talk, maybe they watch the video, like, next year they can still, have the most updated information. Um, yeah, so it's okay to give not up to date information because again, like people understand it takes time to prepare the talk. Like unless you prepare it like three 3 hours before, then yeah, it will be very up to date. Um, if it's something related to your work, I think you have more control over how things are updated. I would always suggest people um be careful of what you show. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. in at some point in my career, I was like actually giving a talk about a product of my company, and they have just make an update right before my talk, and then things just change without me like expecting it. So if you are giving a talk regarding, let's say, certain feature of a certain library, make sure you pin the version, and then you can tell people this is the version I'm using. So there's no surprises. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Great, 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 great. Okay, great. So our last question regarding talk content, preparation, and structure, and this last question goes to all of you. How can a speaker navigate imposter syndrome? Sebastian, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think most of us have imposter syndrome. You just have to deal with that. I mean, I think it's normal, like that you're aware that you know something and that there might be some other things that you don't know about. But first of all, um, you might know something on a specific, you might know about a specific topic much more than a lot of other people. So I know that sometimes people think, oh, this topic I want to present at the conference, this is too basic, no one will be interested in. But it's basic because you probably know a lot about it. And if you ask a lot of other people, they will say, yeah, that's an interesting topic I would like to know about. So just don't beat yourself up about the imposter syndrome. Many people know less about a given topic than you know. And very important thing, I think it's much more important about you being excited about a given topic than you being an expert on a given topic. Like I have seen plenty of talks from people who just were interested in something. They learned about this topic. They had a different take because they were novices. They were never an expert in the first place. They just wanted to present something interesting to people, and they did it, and they did a great talk.
Yeah, I want to echo a little bit of what Sebastian just said. Yeah, I always tell people you don't have to be a PhD or like an absolute expert in giving some topics. I have so many times given a talk about a feature or something that the creator or the core maintainer is just like sitting on the front row listening to my talk. Yeah, it's very stressful, but also think about that, right? They may want to actually know what is the point of view of other people looking at the feature or looking at that thing that they created. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it's just like, talk about Python like when Guido is sitting in the front row and look at you, right? But Guido may actually want to know how you use Python for, right? Like how or like your story of learning Python or like how you discovered Python. Like you always have a new angle that's only unique to you because it may be, the talk is related to your personal experience, what you learn from it, or the mistake that you make. So like um you know, you are not comparing the level of expertise in that topic, but you are giving a fresh and personal or unique angle to that topic. Also, I think a lot of time, like imposter syndrome is like, we all have this. I don't know, like maybe Rodrigo and Sebastian also have this sometimes, like in the middle of giving a talk, suddenly you will like hear a voice saying like, oh no, you're so stupid. Like, why you say that? Like, or say it that way, like sometimes like at the back of your mind, you may hear this, I call it inner critic that is trying to ruin your talk. But the inner critic is part of our human nature, right? The inner critic is there to protect you. Like, for example, like don't jaywalk or like don't cross the road when the car is coming. So it's useful in daily life, not so useful when you're giving a talk. So sometimes you just have to understand you will hear them, it will happen. Just tell them, hey, be quiet. I am doing my job here. So yeah, it will get better with practice.
I can relate to
Yeah.
the to the inner critic. Sometimes I'm giving my talk and I remember, oh damn, I forgot to say something. But you know what? They don't know I forgot it. so I can just I can just roll with it. Or I can just say, oh no, I actually forgot to say this, and it's very important. Take a look. But the audience doesn't care. I mean, did you make a
Mm,
mistake? It's fine. Can you make a joke about it? They're gonna laugh and it's gonna be okay. And if you're having fun, and I think Sebastian kind of said this already earlier, like if you're having fun, the audience is going to enjoy your talk. If you're
mm,
very stiff, or if you're just speaking very fast or very slow or in a monotone, the audience is not going to enjoy your talk. So as long as you're having fun, it doesn't really matter because the audience feels that, well, literally it
mm.
feels that. You can feel it if you watch different talks by different speakers. You react to the emotions that the speakers emanate. I don't know how to say this in English, but you react to that. So just have fun.
Yeah. Great. So before we go to the next section, and so someone would like to know, are there like any voice drills or anything like that a speaker can do before the moment they give their talk?
Or
Right.
is it like what they can do the moment before they give the talk? So it's like right before or
It was big, it just said before.
just before? Okay. Have have a sip of water, I guess.
Mm.
Okay, maybe I should give you more information. Like so the day of your talk, of course, make sure you bring your computer, like what you need. Nowadays, I think most venue will already have a USB-C connection if you don't have an HDMI with your computer. But I always, just in case, will bring my converter. So in case they only have HDMI, I won't be like, oh God, can someone find a converter for me? So I'm prepared. Also like what you said now earlier, go to the room when they, like just before you can check whether everything is working. Because again, like we don't want surprises, right? When you're giving a talk. When there are surprises, like I think the only thing you could do is to, like Rodrigo said, laugh with it and then, but that may not be what you want. So yeah, check everything is working. Um, Usually there will be technician there to help you. So if you want to, let's say you have some video with audio to play, then yeah, let the technician know. They will help you. Sometimes the session chair will be there as well. They may ask you how to pronounce your name, how to introduce you. So, you know, um, a lot of preparation, but more preparation means that things will be smoother and easier for you. Um, Remember to bring some water if sometimes the venue will have water for you there already. So if you don't have a bottle and forgot, and that's fine. Or if you realize, oh, they don't have water, maybe you can find a way, or like ask, like, or go to the venue and steal some water from the venue. I don't know, like, because having water is very useful when you're giving a talk. When you suddenly need the time to break, you can pretend that, oh, I need a sip of water. Then, like, your brain can have a break, and then, or you're panicking, you can have a sip of water so you can calm yourself down because you're like your chain of thought was broken or something. So water is very useful, either for your throat, physically, because sometimes, the air con is so dry and then you just can't stop coughing, then the water really helps to stop the coughing. Yeah, so um, I think having a bottle of water really helps. Like, you can forget about your clicker or whatever, but don't forget the water. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sebastian, Rodrigo, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think Andrew expanded the question in the chat saying what we
Mm,
do before the talks. Uh yeah, I also don't have any drills for voice. I know there are some like YouTube videos for that if you want to practice your voice. I never do that. Usually before my talk, I try to be in the room one talk before, so nothing unexpected happens. I know the room, I can introduce myself to the room manager. Then when there is a break before my talk, I will run to the toilet. As I already said, it's important to use the toilet. I don't drink coffee before, like 1, 2 hours before the talk. I always have my own bottle of water that I know that I can easily open and it will not open accidentally because sometimes you have those very narrow podiums where you can put stuff, so you don't want to have like a glass that will fall on your computer. Yeah, and I get stressed before my talk, so I usually try to distract myself. I might just sit and listen to some music, or maybe I will talk with a friend about some random stuff, just to not get worried about my talk, and then I go.
Great. Rodrigo, is anything you'd like to add?
To the original drills question or to the what do we do before the talk
Yes,
question?
what you do, personally, what you do.
Well, so one thing I never drink coffee on the day of my talks, but that's because I don't drink coffee at all, so I don't think that's relevant. And then right before my talk, what I do is I go watch another talk because just like Sebastian, Sebastian didn't say super nervous, but I get super nervous before my talks. I always do. And thankfully it goes away when I start. But before I'm very, very nervous, and so I just to distract myself, I watch another talk. I sit through another talk. And yeah, that's it.
I mean, honestly, like it's a huge shocker to me that Rodrigo, you get super nervous.
There's because who said it? I don't remember who said it, but the nervousness is you getting ready for whatever comes your way, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you don't know what you're going to talk about, or it doesn't mean you're not ready for it. It's just your
Hmm.
body getting ready for the fight or flight thingy. But then when you start, if
Yeah.
you prepared, if you did enough preparation, it's going to be okay. Most experienced speakers still get nervous
Yeah. Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do,
Okay.
I strongly agree with that. Like, the nerve doesn't go away. Like, of course it's easier to handle it when you are more like familiar, like, more used to it. But I think, you know, but I don't think it will be like zero. So even for me, like now it's like okay, like almost feel like nothing. But if let's say like in case Guido is really sitting in front of me, then maybe I would have a little bit more nervousness. I don't know, like, or my boss, who can fire me sitting in front of, I don't know, like, yeah, I think, don't try to feel like, oh, like I'm nervous, I must be very bad, or like I need to not feel nervous. Absolutely okay to feel nervous. Just you have to find a way to handle it. Either like tell your inner critic to shut up, prepare something like what Rodrigo and Sebastian suggest, like do something to relax or bring your mind out of all the nerves, and find your own way to combat it, and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. So there's a question in the chat I'd like for the panel to ask. So Jael, so this is her first time at EuroPython. She's, I think, 15 years, and she'd like to ask, how can she keep focused on the audience when giving the talk? How can she appear very engaged with the audience? How can she handle the Q&A? I think mostly is from the line of being a first time speaker, being very young, first time at EuroPython. Yes, so anyone who'd like to answer could go.
Yeah, I would just jump in. I was I was quite lucky to be able to receive some actor training because it was my hobby before I go into tech. Um, so for me, yeah, sometimes I think like, giving a talk is a little bit like performance. You have to, really look at your audience and interact with them. One thing I think could do is to maybe tell a joke and see if people laugh, then you definitely need to look at them, right? Like, are they like, you can hear, but you want to see if their expression is genuine. They're like, oh, really? Like, that's really funny. Or they are just laughing of politeness. So you have to look at them. But I know it's very scary, like, especially when you look at the audience and then they're like, more than 100 pair of eyes looking back at you, I know it's again, like, for us experienced speakers still very scary. Some people will feel excited because again, like people react like fight or flight, right? Some people will be frozen if people like that, or some people will feel really like excited because um they love being on stage, I guess. So uh if you really don't want to have the feeling of, oh, people are looking at me, try to find a point in the audience that is not someone's face, but maybe like oh, people are sitting together or an empty chair in the middle of it. So because when you're on stage, people think that you're looking at them when you're looking at like that general direction. Um, so that's trick number one. Trick number two is to get a friend that maybe you have practiced giving a talk with them already, or like that you know them very well, you feel very comfortable talking to them. So ask them to sit there in the audience, try to get a good seat, maybe the first like or second row in the middle. So you just look at them when you talk. So it's like, forget about other people. Imagine it's just your friend. So that's another way of also try to, get yourself used to looking at the audience without actually scared of being watched. Yeah.
Great. That's really helpful. Rodrigo, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, again, it's going to depend on how you're feeling. What I like to do is I like to look through the audience, look at them, and then invariably I find someone that's, just looking at their computer or on their phones, but I also find people who are looking at me and they look engaged. And so what I do is I find three or four of these people, and throughout the talk, I just switch looking at them because it looks like I'm looking at the whole audience. And for each interval of time, I'm talking to someone directly, and I can also shut off the rest of the audience if I'm feeling overwhelmed. And when you think or when you feel you're talking to a single person, it's much easier to communicate. And you can also, if you're looking at that person, you can also see how they react to your explanations, to your jokes, to everything you're saying. And oh, and it was just commented in the chat again. The other thing I had to add, which we said a bunch of times already, Python conferences have a very welcoming community. Like everyone, out of 2,000, there might be a jerk that's, well, a jerk, but the other 1,999 are rooting for you. If you're on stage, they want your talk to go well. They want to talk to you. They want to hear what you have to say. And if you're young, did I get that right? Jael is 15?
Yeah, I think she's about 15, yeah.
Everyone's gonna be rooting for you.
Yeah, everyone is going to be
We want
excited
your
for
talk to go
you.
well. We're going to be there, and enthusiastically applaud your talk. So it's going to be fine. Of course, you're going to be nervous and you're going to feel afraid. So I'm going to say the most irrelevant thing. Don't be afraid, don't. Because, yeah, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move to our next set of questions. We have to do with presentation, delivery, and speaking skills. And I'd like us to drill down a bit on some do's and don'ts specifically for slides, if possible, because I think that's one of the prevalent questions that people have. Like, how should their slides look like, in terms of accessibility and all that? Sebastian, I think you could go first.
Yes, my favorite question, slides. I have a whole to-do list somewhere on my blog, compiled from other articles about the slides. The most important thing is slides are not there to replace your presentation. They are there to support your presentation. So ideally, if you could give your presentation without the slides, that would be great, but probably not many people can do that. But don't try to put what you're talking about on the slides. Maybe put a keyword or a bullet point and explain it. Just keep in mind that if you put too much text on the slide, people will be reading your slides, not listening to you. So if you have a slide with a lot of text, then maybe you want to take a sip of water and let the people read the slide, and then you start explaining. So yeah, don't put walls of text. Don't rely too much on the colors, because what you see on your screen might be different in a bright or dark room. So try to stick with neutral colors, like dark text on a white background should work. Make the font larger, and then make the font even larger, because there will be people in the back room not being able to see anything. Don't put important stuff at the bottom of the slides, because there will be people in front rows hiding the bottom of the slide, so try to put the most important information on the top. And one last thing, I can talk for hours. One last thing, don't put also walls of code. So if you're trying to explain a concept, don't like write the whole Python code about function for the user to log in. Just have a pseudocode log in the user and explain the important bits. So just get rid of the code that is not relevant to the stuff you're talking about. And now I'm gonna shut up and let the others talk.
Cheuk, how about you?
Yeah, I think they are very good points. My point of view is mostly like if you have some text on your slides, it should be something that, like, for example, if someone listened to your talk, that's what they would put down in the notebook. I know I'm very old school, right? Like pen and paper notebook. So it should be that because they are, people, when people listening to your talk, they are not the transcriber to like write everything. So they would just put key points, and those will be the things that you put it on your slides. Another thing about the code, for example, if you're explaining some code and in your computer IDE or whatever, like it's like a wall of text, right? Like you have all the codes, like maybe 500 line of code. It's quite a lot. However, how do you present it? It could be like bit by bit by bit, right? Like, so how do you read the code? For example, you read the import first, then you just have one slide, just show the import. So this is what I'm importing. And then next will be like, oh, this is where the function is. So, and also skip the detail, you can replace the like some irrelevant detail with dot dot dot. So like there are some code there, but they're irrelevant. So don't worry about them. So when you show the code, imagine how you read the code in your computer and show them like step by step by step. So you bring people on a journey of reading your code instead of just, boom, there's 500 line of code. Good luck reading them. So that's my way of approaching it. So everything that Sebastian said was good. Font size, all of them. One tiny thing that I could add is that try to use light mode as much as you can, because a lot of it depends on the venue. Some venues absolutely fine if they have really professional, like almost like a concert hall kind of, all the, very good equipment, and then, dark mode looks amazing, right? Very professional. However, some of the venue may not be that good. They may have some windows or some light may seeping in, and in that case, then your dark mode slides won't look cool. It just looks very hard to see. So I think EuroPython may not have that problem that much, but sometimes, like for example, if you speak at another event that is happening in university have the worst projector, like a lot of times, like in the classroom. So yeah, try to use light mode just in case when you don't know the venue. Yeah.
Great. Rodrigo, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, did anyone mention the font size? No, I'm just kidding, of course. Sebastian said it 3 times and Cheuk as well. Yeah, the font size, make it larger. Why? Because you don't want a lot of folks sitting in your audience. They're humans. And regardless of what everyone says, people cannot multitask. They are either reading your slides or they are listening to you. And you want them to listen to you. If the point is to have them read your slides, write a blog post. You want them to listen to you. So you don't want to have a lot of text on your slide. I love Cheuk's. I never thought about it that way. You want the text on your slides to be what they would jot down in their notebooks as bullet points. That's a brilliant way to think about it. Make your font size very large, because then you cannot fit much text into your slides. And then don't make the font size smaller. Keep the text or the code to a minimum. So yeah, don't put a lot of content. And then still along the lines of the audience cannot multitask, I try to be a bit of an extremist on this, but like, don't include stuff that doesn't matter, because the audience is going to look at it. I don't care about your email on every single slide. I don't care about your company. I don't care about the date. I don't care about the name of the conference. I know the conference I mean. I don't need it in every single, the stuff on the footer and on the header and on the sides, and then remove all of that. It's my opinion, of course, a bit of an extreme one. And then let's see. Yeah, and then everyone, the Cheuk and Sebastian already said everything else I usually cover. So you're good to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Also, sometimes you can break it into multiple slides. So, for example, I have 10 points like in this topic. you can put them in like 3 slides, then each slide have 2 or 3 points, and you don't have to squeeze 10 points into like one slide. So just, you know.
Okay. So someone is asking, so someone wants to know, how can I give my presentation effectively when they include a lot of counter questioning? And how can the person address like a room full of people? So the person wants to know, okay, if the person's presentation includes a lot of counter questioning, how can the person handle that or give the presentation in that way? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that may actually is that about the Q&A, right? Like maybe. Yeah, so
Um, yeah.
yeah, Q&A can be very tricky because for a lot of people they're like, okay, I prepare my talk, I practice, I think I'm perfect, but Q&A is yeah, Q&A is very hard to predict, right? You don't know who is sitting there and asking what questions. Sometimes you've got a lot of controversial questions. Or if you are giving a very controversial topic, like AI, no. So, okay. What I would always tell people is that you can say, I don't take questions on the stage. What you can do is we have that policy as well in EuroPython. You can also not take Q&A. Usually the room your host room manager will ask you, do you want Q&A at the end? If they forgot, you can tell them that when you are preparing, connecting your computer, you can tell them like, hey, for this talk, I won't take Q&A on the stage. So at the end of your talk, you can just say like, if you have any questions, just come to me at the coffee break, whatever. So that is one of the solution is to just not do Q&A on stage. However, if you think like, oh, actually, like, it's okay, I can do Q&A, just like certain people ask certain question I don't want to answer. There are many, many ways to dodge the bullet. One of them is to just say like, for example, right? It depends on situation. So I give you a few options so you have those in your pocket. One is, oh, it's about my work, and I need to check with my manager whether I can disclose it publicly. Let's talk about it, and maybe let's follow up in private. That's one way. Another is that like we don't have enough time to explain it because I would spend like a lot of time to explain this. So maybe, let's talk about that after, so we can meet at the lunch, coffee break, whatever. There's another way. So, or you can just say like, I don't know about that, or I'm not so sure. I need to double check, and then, brush through the question. So it's okay to say that I don't know because, not everybody know everything. If it's something that is like related to your topic, but not exactly what you said in the presentation, then you may not have think about that before. And it's okay to say like, you don't know, but, you know, you can phrase it in a nice way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chuk. So Sebastian, just a second, I want to answer Rodrigo. So Rodrigo, I think this person is asking a situation where the presentation a person is given has um how should I explain this? Like would have people asking questions that are um what's the word? Argumentative, for lack of a better word. Like maybe there's a particular topic and yes, I really good to get to now. I hope answered, you have explained properly.
Yeah, thank you. With your rephrasing and also Chuck's answer, I get it now. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, Sebastian, please can go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something based on Chuck's advice about saying that you can say to not have the question and answer phase of your presentation. There is a different life hack that I'm doing. I basically talk for 30 minutes and there is no time for Q&A. And I'm not doing this on purpose. Usually when I have the first draft of a presentation for half an hour, it's 1 hour talk. So I just cut content, but I still decide to use 30 minutes of talk. So that's another way to use the 5 minutes for Q&A. If you don't want to have those, just have a longer presentation. That's quite often acceptable at conferences. I think at EuroPython that's also acceptable. Another thing, second comment related to actually to the question. I think someone already mentioned that you're going on the stage to present your point of view. So the idea is not for you to go on the stage and have like a ping pong of different ideas. Like you try to explain this, but you counter argument this and you counter argument that. You go there, you present your point of view. If you are aware there might be different points of view, you can also comment on those. But maybe you don't have to. Really depends on the topic. But if you know there will be like counterpoints, probably people will ask them during the Q&A, so you can prepare to answer them during the Q&A session. So if you can anticipate what people will ask about, then you're gonna have easy time during the Q&A. But yeah, I think the point is you're presenting your point of view. You're not trying to cater to 100 or 1,000 people in the room.
That's true. Your point of view. That's true. Thank you so much. So I wanted to like focus a bit on so someone wants to know how can speakers keep the audience engaged and attentive throughout the talk? Yeah. Anyone who wants Rodrigo, you could go first. Yeah.
Oh, Rodrigo, please.
Please, Cheuk, you were
You
go
could go
ahead.
ahead.
You are expert in that, so let's go for it, Rodrigo.
I know, right?
Too much pressure now. Well, stuff not to do. Vary your rhythm and your intonation. Of course, try to talk like you normally do, because that's usually enough. Avoid going too fast and too slow. There's the sweet spot, which is the way you normally talk. There's a 99.99% probability that the way you usually talk is good enough. So what you need to do is practice beforehand to make sure that you can use your regular voice while presenting, because some people get so nervous they just speed run through their talk. Other folks can even talk because they need what, so pay attention to your voice. And then it's very much up to personal preference. Some people like to include memes on their slides. Others like to make jokes. Others like to interact with the audience. A quick hand raiser in the beginning of the talk is always a good, who here has heard of the module XYZ, by show of hands. Sometimes what I do is by applause, so I ask people to applaud, by applause, who understood this explanation? Just small touch points, small checkpoints to make sure that the audience is still alive and well. All those things, you can do all of those. Of course, don't overdo it. Don't crack 10 jokes in 2 minutes, don't ask 10 questions in a row. But all of these things sprinkled throughout your talk, they tend to work decently. Does that sound fair?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I want people to bear in mind is that you won't get 100% of the audience engaged. There will always be that guy who is playing on their phone. There will always be that person who is like preparing their talk like tomorrow, and then using their computer. There's always that person who just finished a big lunch and fell asleep. So, and partied too hard last night. So yeah, like you don't have to please everybody. However, of course, like follow Rodrigo's advice, you can make your talk more engaging and make more people who can, pay attention. Be a little bit careful about a meme or jokes because sometimes what is funny to you may not be funny for everybody. So I would always suggest like if you want to laugh at someone, laugh at yourself because the only person who can get offended is yourself. And if you're okay with it, then it's okay. So yeah. So I think all of Rodrigo's advice was really good. And yeah, I don't have more to add.
Okay, great. Sebastian, anything you want to add?
Yeah, but I basically agree with what Rodrigo said. You can engage with audience in a different ways. Sometimes you can tell a joke. I usually don't tell jokes because if they don't land, then I don't know how to recover. It kicks me out from the pace. But if you want something easy, you can just do the raise of hands exercise. So that's one thing. Second, like you can change the pace of your talk. So if you have like a slides with a lot of text, and maybe you want to show a picture or something like that, just so people are not looking at text all the time. And I have something else in my, oh, yes. Having a story always help. It doesn't have to be like the greatest story, but it's just easier to follow. And one thing I've learned throughout my career of presentations is that it's kind of weird when people start their presentation by introducing themselves and talking about their company, if that's not related to the topic of the presentation. Like if you say, "Hi, I'm Sebastian, I work in this company, and then we did this project, and then we sent the rocket to the space, it blew up because there was a Python variable, blah, blah, blah." That's an interesting story. But if you spend 2 minutes talking about yourself, your company, you did that, and your talk is completely unrelated to that, you just wasted 2 minutes. And for me, 2 minutes of a talk, it's a lot. I'm gonna fight for those 2 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll be wrapping up soon. So if you have any
Sorry,
questions, you could put.
I have a hot take against the self-introduction. I think at this day I also don't do self-introduction, but I think if you are a new speaker, because I feel like, I'm taking the privilege of like I've been to so many events and some people already know who I am. So I will keep my self-introduction brief. But if you're a new speaker, if you're giving a topic that's relevant to your work, then you can introduce yourself briefly, like just one slide saying like, actually, I created this library, or I work in this company and we created this library. So you can kind of instate your what's that like your recognizability. I don't know, like
Establish credibility. Yeah.
yeah, establish the credibility of why I'm giving this talk, because that's my work. So yeah.
Really great, could go ahead. Hello, Rodrigo. Okay.
Can I
Oh, I think Rodrigo
my
get
internet is unstable.
Yeah.
yeah. Ooh. Do you want to type so we can
No.
no? Oh no.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can hear you now.
Maybe you can turn off the video. Does it help? Okay.
Never mind. Don't worry.
Oh.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Speaking about technical issues.
I know, right? Okay, so yeah, so I was saying that we'll be wrapping up shortly. So if you have any questions, you could put in the chat. Then so I'll be asking the panel. So someone would like to know, how can you use this opportunity to give a talk to build your own career?
Oh, I think there are so many benefits of giving talks. I always encourage people to do that. So for your career, of course, I will explain a little bit. But first of all, I also use the talk opportunity to learn something new. Like I think as one of the panelists mentioned already that some people are like interested in that topic, so they now I have to give the talk so I can research on the topic. And then if you're like me, who also like get my manager to let me just like use my work time to prepare the talk, then work time to learn something you are interested in, great. Another thing, of course, giving a talk at Python conference is a very good exposure opportunity. I always encourage, again, like get a friend into the room, take some picture for you, and post on social media. Nowadays, everybody do that. You have to self-promote in a certain way to, to view your career. I totally understand that. So yeah, make sure that, yeah, again, like someone there in the room for you. If you're like, oh, I'm going to this new conference by myself, I don't have a friend yet. Make a friend before you go to give your talk. Like that's your goal. Make a new friend at the conference. Or sometimes, be very nice to the room manager, maybe, ask them to snap a few shot of you at the beginning of your talk, and they're not super busy yet, then yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is that, like, for example, you can also advertise about your talk on social media. A lot of conference like EuroPython now they're, announcing the speakers and posting it out. So again, like that's also very good for your career. I think in general, yeah, like giving a talk is a very good career building thing. You can establish that you're interested and have some knowledge of a certain topic. Also make good connection because I have a very good friend, Martin Boris, like people from EuroPython know him. He will go to a talk about a topic that he's really interested. But he said that the best thing is not to be there to listen to the talk, but to build connection, to meet people who are also interested in that topic. So if you are the speaker, people will definitely know you are interested in that topic and they will come and find you throughout the conference to talk about that topic. So it's also very good if you are genuinely like interested in that topic. Yeah.
Great. That's really helpful. Rodrigo, Sebastian, is there anything you'd like to add?
Sorry, I was typing on the chat, so I missed the question. Okay.
Yeah, so
Oh yeah, about professional development. Yes, I think Chuck is
yes,
the most
yes.
experienced person here to talk about that. Um, for me, I would say that you should try to submit your talk to multiple conferences if you can. Like if you put an effort to make a talk, just try to submit it to multiple conferences. This is like weeks or months of work. Just don't spend it on one conference. And usually it's easier when your talk is not yet online because like all the conferences want to have the fresh talks, but like just try to submit it here and there. And from my personal experience, it's uh, easier once you have some velocity than when you're starting. So if you give a talk at one conference, then maybe you will be invited to another conference. Next year you give the second talk. You have the talk from the last year to show the conference on the organizers that you already spoke at the conference. So if you do this regularly, it will be easier to like accumulate more conferences and be invited to some places. But yeah, just submit your proposals out there.
Great. Rodrigo, anything you'd like to add? Add in this? Oh, his
I think we
internet.
lost him.
Yeah. So
Oh
Susan wants
no.
to know.
Right.
So Andrew wants to know, are there any tips for dealing mentally? Are there any tips that a first-time speaker can deal with mentally regarding having very unexpected attention after the talk? Especially in a situation where this first-time speaker is so tired, then done with the talk, then there are so many people swarming in, asking questions. So the person not being ungrateful, but then like it just seems very exhausting for an introvert. Like how can an introvert deal with that?
Oh yeah, that's a very genuine, like great question.
Mm,
I think, okay, I have this theory that like we like putting people in a box, introvert, extrovert, but there's a wide spectrum of it. Like people may be on a different like point at the spectrum, and also people will switch. There are days that I feel more, excited to talk to people. There are days that I just want to be in my hotel room by myself, and it's okay. So regarding after giving your talk, and then maybe, a big group of people want to talk to you because your talk is amazing and people are genuinely very interested. Um, I would say that try to maybe spend like at least 5 minutes, like maybe just outside the talk room, just to like, maybe take a few more questions if there are follow-up questions. But then after that, you can be like, oh, excuse me, you can make an excuse, like I have a meeting, I need to go back to my hotel room to do this call. So you can exit the scene, exit the, venue. My habit is that I like booking the hotel very close to the conference, so I can, sometimes feel overwhelmed in the conference. I can take a break. So yeah, you can use that as an excuse to go. And a lot of conferences also have quiet room, so maybe like after you give your talk, you feel overwhelmed, you need some time to like, calm down. You can go to the quiet room because the rule of the quiet room is to be quiet, so nobody are supposed to talk to you. If they try to talk to you, you can be like, "Oh, excuse me, it's quiet room. I have to, do some work and stuff." So yeah, once you said you have to do work, and most people are very sensible and they won't bother you because, they don't want you to lose your job. So, yeah, so use work as an excuse to, exit some of the, the social situation that you can't deal with like at that moment. It's fine. It's not ungrateful. They can always catch you later when you're recharged, when you are more energized, when you're ready to have more social interactivity. Everybody needs to take care of themselves. And if that moment you need some quiet time, go back to your hotel room or go to the quiet room. Just, take care of yourself. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So someone is asking, what is your method of tracking the talks that you want to speak over the year? Do you actively look out for conferences and craft a proposal, or you find a conference that fits work you have done already? Anyone who is ready to take that?
I can start. I know that there was
Um,
like a Python library called ConfRadar that was telling you when the conferences were happening, but that was a couple
mm,
of years ago. I don't know if there is like a good tool to know when the conferences are running and when the call for proposal is open. So I usually just try to follow, check regularly some conferences. I know which conferences I might want to go. There is just a handful with those local conferences. I think it's harder, but I don't know, maybe Cheuk knows some better ways. But I usually just try to check regularly for the conferences that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
one of our friend, also like a EuroPython regular, yeah, Python deadlines. No, sorry, don't follow mine. Mine was wrong. Rodrigo's one is correct. That is the one that you can see all the CFP deadlines and also the conference, when are they happening. So yeah, go there and I suggest that one because you can also, check when the CFP is ending and which one is open, so you can also submit a talk. I assume everybody who is here want to give talks or try to give talk or, interested in giving a talk. So use that one. And if you're organizer, please, also put your conference there. And yeah, so the Python that lin.es, so the deadlines, but they put the dot in front of es. So yeah, use that link and go there and have a look.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Please add any other questions?
Oh, sorry. I saw the question was actually I may be answering it wrong because it's like method of tracking the talks that you want to speak over the so like
Over the year?
maybe like maybe my pipeline or something like I think that may be also
Mm,
relevant. So I would maybe just quickly give you my way of working. It may not, again, like may or may not work for you, but it's just like I'm giving you more information so you can think about that. So for me, I also like Sebastian, I also resubmit talks. What I do is that I would write before I use another like website to do it, but now I just like use Google Doc, you know. Everybody use Google these days, to have like title and then like all my CFP like written and saved there. Um, so when I want to resubmit, I have it, there already, so I can, just very easily, like based on that, maybe make a little bit more changes to fit that specific event and resubmit. Um, Luckily, again, like giving talks are part of my job, so I do have a Kanban board with my team. Not specifically for conference talks, but I we have a section of like so my CFP will be a ticket, and then I can just move it like, is it accepted? When is the conference and all the things? Yeah, there's a lot of management to do, actually. You have to also make sure that, when your talk is accepted, you have to make sure you confirm the organizer, make sure if you're traveling for the conference, get the traveling done, make sure you have a ticket. Usually these days, I think speaker will get a ticket from the organizer. If not, make sure you buy a ticket. Also like make sure you book the hotel. Like so it's like a lot to handle. So you don't have to start like me, have like do many, many talks over the year, but maybe like try one or two so it's, less overwhelming. Or try your local meetup because no travel, less things to deal with. So I hope that also kind of help answering the questions.
yeah, that's really helpful. And I think when you start attending these conferences, you hear of other conferences. So yeah. And any other question anyone wants to ask? Okay, so Cheuk, Sebastian, Rodrigo, thank you so much. Please, are there any last words that you have for us? Any last thing you want to say?
I'm gonna say, remember, increase the font.
My number one things that I want you to remember is to have fun. Again, like if you don't like it, you won't do it again because, a lot of us who present, well, I mean, all of us who present EuroPython doesn't get pay, right? I mean, like we don't get money from EuroPython to be speaking there. So, we do it because we love it. And um, if you don't love doing it, you won't do it. So, and not many people, want to make this their career. So, enjoy. That's my number one suggestion. Just enjoy and have fun. And, you know, Python, EuroPython is one of, well, maybe not is the second. I would borrow Arthur's saying it's the second best, the best second conference because the first one maybe your local one, and the second would be EuroPython. So yeah, so like, you would really enjoyed it. So just enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah. Rodrigo, how about you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, that's it. Cheuk stole my words, so just have fun and see you in Krakow.
Yeah. So thank you so much to Rodrigo Sebastian, and thank you so much to Andrew for being an amazing room manager, and thank you to all the mentors and mentees. To the mentees, you could still contact your mentors if your talk got accepted, and they are definitely ready to help you out. And thank you all for attending. If your talk didn't get accepted, you could try other conferences or try again next year. And we look forward to seeing you all in Krakow in a few weeks. So thank you all and have an amazing evening. Bye.
Bye. Thank
Thank you. See you in Krakow.
Bye. See you.
Bye.